We are here talking about the insanity in the world, and quite possibly one of the most insane places right now has got to be the UK. There's a lot of silliness going on there. We saw the story a couple weeks ago. I think it was last week about the honeypot story where they got the hot cops running down the street in their spandex, and whenever they get a cat call, the cops pull up and they go whoop whoop, and they get mad about that. Did y'all, Marty? Did you see that story?
I didn't see it, but I heard something about people being arrested for whistling at women. So
yes, they were. They'd get a stern talking to about
stern
it.
talking to.
That's right. And the logic was that they could potentially do other worse things in the future because catcalling is the marijuana of bad things. You know, so
it's the gateway.
That's right. The gateway to horrible things. Well, we saw
the UK has to have. They must be running out of things to do and be upset about because they are just going after the stupidest things.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, don't apologize for that. You're not wrong. We have a number of people who watch us from the UK, and they all. I'm when they super chat in or say something, I almost feel like the cops are going to burst down their door and say, "How dare you!" Right?
Putting a target on their own backs.
Mm-hmm.
When I get into Congress and I meet Keir Starmer, I'm going to give him a good talking.
Yeah, the 1-2.
Yes.
The 1-2.
Do you know what free speech is, my man? You do not know. And it was invented in England. Come on, Magna Carta.
Well,
they've gone back on their history.
They've certainly forgot. As we're going to go to the BBC here, where a woman who was jailed for a hate post has now been released from prison here. So this was the woman. An online post in the wake of the Southport killings led to a 31-month jail term here. Here says a woman who was jailed for stirring up racial hatred in the aftermath of Southport attack has been released from prison. Lucy Connolly, whose husband serves on Northampton Town Council, pleaded guilty in September after posting the expletive-ridden message on X the day 3 girls were stabbed to death in July 2024. Connolly called for mass deportations now and urged followers on X to set fire to hotels housing asylum seekers. That's a little extreme, but all right.
Yeah.
But she got a 31-month prison sentence for that. Connolly was freed from prison at the automatic press release point of her custodial sentence after serving 40% of the term in prison. She will serve the remainder of the sentence under license license under the supervision of a probation service. So there she is. I think the top picture looks a little bit better, but that's fine. Regardless, this is kind of silly. Obviously, I don't think we should be talking about burning down any sort of hotels or anything like that. But Marty, you said it yourself. The idea of free speech that's kind of where it started, and does not seem like there's a whole lot of free speech happening in the UK right now.
Well, I mean, seriously, talk about the Streisand effect. I mean, how many people took her seriously in the first place? She apologized. She took it down. She was obviously emotionally responding to something that was tragic. And so it's not like she's saying, oh, I stand by what I said. She, really 31-month jail sentence for words on a page that people can easily understand and ignore. Like, I just don't get it. And especially when you look at the amount of clamping down that went around that whole thing and the talk about misinformation, the guy who was responsible for the stabbing is the lowest form of humanity and had an Al-Qaeda journal that he kept, and he was making ricin, and so I'm sure he's not going to get away with anything. But I mean, the fact that the British police wouldn't even call that an act of terrorism is insane to me. Of course it's terrorism. So
yeah, and the best part is, so the guy who did the stabbings, he's under the age of 18. He was 17 at the time. So they're literally making the argument saying he can't serve life imprisonment because he was underage. It's like, hang on. This guy is getting like a free pass for murdering, but this chick goes to jail for saying something on the internet.
Right, exactly.
It's not very balanced, is it? Like he just screams peace.
Yeah, no.
Well,
there you go.
My thought is, if you know you're going to get a mugshot, right, and you know that you just murdered 3 girls, maybe not look like you're going to go out and murder 3 more in your mugshot.
I don't
Just-
think
Well,
he cares,
listen.
to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Cares.
and I'm sure that he's mentally, ill. I mean, there's just you look at that picture and you look at what he did. This is not a sane human being. So, okay, fine, he's insane, but he should not ever be out in public again. I mean, I don't care that he was 17. This is insane. And I'm sure that most of his life he was peaceful. So you can say he was a mostly peaceful person until he killed 3 people in just a really short amount of time compared to the rest of his life. So
Fiery, but mostly peaceful.
Yes, he was just fiery in that instance right there, which is
Stabby, but mostly peaceful.
mostly less stabby. Yes.
You mentioned
Laugh about that is horrible. But this
question.
is England is where George Orwell was born, and he called it years ago. Or this is Orwellian to have this kind of thing happening.
Question. You said when you see Prime Minister Keir Starmer there, he said the conviction of the, quote, vile and sick Southport killer, couldn't that be seen as hate speech, as he said vile and sick, like under the UK, like technically, if you want to get, if you're just talking about offending people, somebody surely could potentially be upset at and offended by someone calling someone else vile and sick.
Yeah. The question for me is, where do they draw the line? If you say what would be considered hateful things, and somebody has to determine what the definition of hateful is. If you're calling for violence, and this woman did call for direct violence against people, and that was her mistake, whether or not after apologizing and pulling it down and asking forgiveness and some sort of understanding, she deserves that kind of jail sentences. That's what's insane. But England now is beginning to, they could be putting people in jail or, penalizing them for saying things like, I think these people should be deported. And
Well-
that is the thing that could be, and you should have free speech to say that. That's your opinion. It's a political opinion. So.
Yeah, and it's like what Orwell said, the further a society drifts from the truth, the more they will hate those that speak it.
There you go. I needed
Preach,
that
Vera.
quote. Excellent.
Well, a lot of this has stemmed around the UK Online Safety Act as well. And, once again, it's always for the children here. But they were going after 4chan as well under that. And 4chan is a United States-based company. And 4chan has now rejected the $26,000 fine under UK's Online Safety Act over here, saying a lawyer representing 4chan says the online message board will not pay a proposed fine. I love the idea of we're going to propose to fine you, right? Hey, so what do you guys think about a fine here of $26,000 issued by the UK regulator, Ofcom, as part of its enforcement of the Online Safety Act?
They want to scare people into silence.
I think you're right. Whatever you guys think of 4chan, good, bad, or indifferent, the fact that they're pushing back against this, I can't think it would be seen as a bad thing in a situation like this. Ofcom opened an investigation into whether 4chan had met its obligations under the act, which required platforms to protect users from illegal content in August. By the way, what are they doing with this for about Facebook and Instagram and X? And what about all these other platforms? Because I'm pretty sure you can find all the illegal content on them. Anyways, in August,
who makes the decision of what's illegal content for online safety? This is like you said it, or somebody said it earlier as a joke. Silence is violence. No, silence is not violence. Violence is violence. Could we just have real definitions of real words? I mean, online safety, if somebody's grooming people online, yeah, when they actually act on that and you find them and all that kind of stuff, great, they've broken the law. But, if you don't like 4chan, then just don't support 4chan. You don't have to silence 4chan, and you don't have to, I silence Reddit.
But Marty, won't you please think of the children?
The children.
Think of the children, Marty.
Yep, that's always the excuse is they're trying to protect children when really they don't care about children, or they would have done this years and years and years ago. It's just at the point where they want as much online surveillance to be implemented as possible.
Yeah. No, it's freaky to me that
Well-
they think they think that the violence happens in chat rooms or something. So
Mean
Well-
words.
mean words are words. So
Yeah.
Well, the UK's taken it a step further in the name of children, as the Children's Commissioner of England, which is a really weird title, by the way. The Children's Commissioner of England, Rachel de Souza, has published a new report with recommendations to the government. She says that VPNs are loopholes that need to be closed through mandatory age verifications. This is her right here saying this.
Course we need age verification on VPNs. It's absolutely a loophole that needs closing, and that's one of my major recommendations. Of course.
So they're going after VPNs, which is a thing now, because, hey, we all know that 6-year-old who's logging on to NordVPN to get access to all the bad things on Netflix or whatever. Just another example of kind of the slippery slope that we're seeing here. And give it up for the Children's Commissioner of England here to take down the VPNs.
well, frankly, I would like to see better technology for age verification, because I don't think everything in the world should be easily accessible all the time to everybody. There's a lot of bad things that I don't want my grandsons to see, and that's why we have parents and grandparents. But it is hard to. It would be nice if there was some technology that assisted parents and grandparents who want to protect kids from crap that comes spewing out of the computers and the internet. So better technology is fine. Government dipping in and starting to control things and defining things, that's problematic for me.
What does that look like to you? The idea of a tool that helps parents a little more, because obviously, we've talked about this a lot on the show. And look, as a parent, I totally get it, right? People say you need to do better parenting, and I agree, right? Parenting is extremely important. You got to be there for your kids. You got to know what your kids are looking at. But knowing what your kids are looking at 100% of the time, look, we've all been kids, right? We all understand that's pretty much impossible. I think it just comes down to how are you parent your kids and more or less educate them on what is acceptable and what's not acceptable, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's, kids' brains are not developed. They can't make the, good choices all the time. And no matter how you parent them, they're not always making good choices. So what they're exposed to, if you expose them to every kind of technology that exists, that's a decision you've made, which is not good. But boy, once you know that your mobile phones and your computers, they're ubiquitous in every place your kids are being educated or what they're doing with their friends. It's just something that helps the parents turn, adults only stuff off would be, it should be up to the adults to do something extra to access content. And it shouldn't be just super easy for kids to access that content. And it shouldn't be hard for parents to figure out ways to prevent their kids from accessing content. All that stuff should be easy. Make the adults go through a couple of hoops. That's all.
I've had this theory for several
And
years
by the way,
now.
if I had the technology, design, I would be selling it to somebody to make this easy. I'm hoping somebody else figures out good ways of doing it. So it's sort of like, two-factor authentication for, who you are. Wouldn't it be great if you never had to type a password or have something memorizing your passwords? Like somebody's going to come up with technology that's going to make all that stuff easier, because it's a big pain.
Well, Apple does
And I'd
that.
like to see something come up that's easier for age verification. I don't know what it is. I hope somebody invents it.
There'd be biometric data. You popping your thumb on there, you're looking at your eyes or whatever. So I've had this theory, and Marty, you're obviously running for Congress, so I would actually really like to hear your thoughts on this.
Yes.
I feel like social media in the next 10, 15 years, I think that it'll be looked back on in the same way that we look at smoking. that we did in the 50s or something, where it's like, oh, it's safe, like, oh, how about you have these cigarettes? It'll help you or whatever, right? And then we realized that it was very, very bad for people and that it's actually doing more harm. I think in not a physical sense or potentially a physical sense, but more of like an emotional sense and a development sense, I think that we're going to look at social media in the coming future the same way we look at cigarettes, and that there will be restrictions on how soon you can do that. Like once you become an adult, okay, you can smoke those cigarettes. Okay, once you become an adult, you can have access to social media. But all the data that we've seen, just like we saw data on cigarettes and the damage it does to your body and lungs and everything like that, we're seeing data specifically when it comes to teenagers who have access to social media and the immense harm that it does to them, emotionally, psychologically, and in some cases physically.
Yeah, I mean, back in my day, there was a discussion about the addictiveness of games and gamers who got addicted to games because they had addictive personalities. And it was almost as though the game developers were supposed to do something about it. And my thing on that was like, you can't change the developers' desire to get people to play their games and keep playing their games and not do other things. But you can have other people out there, psychiatrists and psychologists and researchers and possibly even people in the government who sort of put some, fences around things that could be bad for people. And any new technology, it's going to be good and bad, and it's going to be the Wild West. And at some point, we'll have to corral some of these things in. And I think you're right. I think social media is a relatively new, in terms of the human race, it's extremely new. And we really don't know what's good and what's bad about it. And I think you're right. I think down the road here, we're going to start to corral some of these things in and realize the damage that was there from the beginning. We just didn't know it. And eventually we'll know what that damage is, and hopefully we'll figure out some ways to put some logical fences around social media to keep people healthy. But like, it's going to be really hard to come up with a government program. The government might not be the best place to do that.
Right.
So that is my problem is I ultimately agree that, children should not be accessing, pornography online, but ultimately age verification is identity verification. And I completely disagree with that. I believe that it is the parents' fault if the child is seeing that content. There are tools even on mobile devices to block certain web pages and certain content that is marked as NSFW. I do not believe that people should be restricted from creating the content that they want because it is intended for an adult audience. And I think that ultimately, you never want to look to the government to restrict something because they will always push the limits. They will always go too far.
Yeah, but there's reasonable, societal restraints. We don't let people put billboards up on the freeways that have porn on it. And we just say it's up to the parent to put blinders on their kids as you drive in the car. I mean,
well, true, but you could take the mobile device away from your child or put those tools on the mobile device.
Well, what I'm saying, and I agree with you. I don't think it should be a huge government intervention thing, but what I'm hoping for is not that the developers have the burden, but that the other people who, and I think the people who are researchers and then people who can, make a living making apps that make this easier for parents. Because right now it's actually surprisingly difficult for normal people to protect their kids from figuring out ways of accessing a lot of stuff. And so what that is, I don't have the solution for it, but I think down the road we'll have better solutions.
Well, see, I do ultimately, understand where you're coming from, but it's like with video games, right? I would never sit here and tell a developer they can't create a Grand Theft Auto or something with ultra violence. But the argument from certain individuals out there, right, is they will take a rogue study and they will say violence in video games cause violence in the real world. And their aim is to ultimately take access away from adults and say either you need to age verify or developers shouldn't even be making this content because it could be seen by children. Ultimately, sure, I do get that parents would want their child maybe playing a GTA or playing a Call of Duty, but if we give an inch, they'll take a mile, and that will just lead to censorship for everybody. And it's all under the guise of, protecting the children, when ultimately it's just about gaining more power and control and surveilling what people are doing on the internet.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think this government surveillance and things like that, I wouldn't want to go in that direction. I like the idea of going further in the direction of like the ESRB, or warning labels on things, or rating systems for movies, so people have a better idea of what they choose to expose their kids to. I just believe that with social media, it's so hard right now technically to really monitor what your kids have access to. So I'd like to see that get easier for parents, and I'm looking for you programmers out there to come up with ways to make it relatively easy for parents to be able to do their job. Right now, it's actually just not. I mean, you basically have to say no screens, no devices.
Well, you can block the
that's a little-
downloads of certain applications from
I'm
technological
not saying you
devices.
can't, but it's a little. Those of us who know computers and technology, we can figure this stuff out, but it's not the easy path. You have to have. I just think we need to make it really easy, and perhaps make it slightly harder for people to choose to access certain things. So, I mean, obviously, we're going to get into the gray areas of the line between what you say is porn, what I say is porn, what you say is abuse to children, what I say is abuse to children. I get that. But I mean, for sure, we, as a society, there are limits and there are fences that we will all accept. And I just think at this point, it's a little bit too easy. But I think, Craig, what you're talking about too is just the access of social media, of especially, teenagers just constantly being online, judging each other and talking to each other and feeling like they're worthless. That's bad enough when you're actually in school and you're in junior high and you're getting picked on. But when you have, your phone with you constantly, and even Chat GPT is telling you horrible things about who you are. I mean,
Right.
it's like, it's not a good time right now. I think it's a little bit of a dangerous time. I don't have the solution. I don't think government should jump in on this. But I think as, normal, rational humans, we can come up with some systems.
Right. I think, look, I always talk about being a dad, right? Dad of a 13-year-old and 11-year-old, right? Both at very impressionable ages. And
That's a tough age.
very, very tough. And when you talk about social media as a whole, some of their friends have it, some of their friends don't. Most of their friends don't. But imagine being 13 years old, you're going through puberty, you're trying to figure out what your life is going to be like. You're constantly comparing yourself to everything else, whether you're a boy or a girl. And then you go online and all you see is people's very specific one frame of their life designed to make them look spectacular, right? Nobody goes online except if you're like, blue haired with a nose ring and complains about things all day long, right? People only post their positive. So you then compare your life to their life at, this impressionable age. And ultimately you're going, well, my life sucks compared to that. Oh my God. And it does have, like, once again, all the data points to this rise in depression that wasn't there 10, 15, 20 years ago when it comes to, specifically teenage girls. So, and just as a dad of a teenage girl, like that's something that's I'm very mindful of. So, man, it's a really good discussion. And I'm glad we kind of have varying thoughts on this. This is good. Do you know that if you subscribe, you won't go bald? Just kidding. You actually probably will.